Okay, so today we're going to solve one-step equations, and this is going to take us back to almost 6th grade when we first started solving equations. And the first thing you need to think about is that an equation is like a balance scale, and what you do to one side you have to do to the other to keep it balanced. And we always want our equations to stay balanced. So we're going to start by doing all four right away. So we're going to do the addition equations here, subtraction here, multiplication, and division. So these are the four basic operations. An addition equation means that you're taking the variable and adding something to it. Okay? A subtraction equation means take the variable and subtract something from it. A multiplication equation means take the variable and multiply it by something. And a division equation then would mean obviously take the variable and divide it by something. Okay? And to undo what's being done to the variable, you use inverse operations. And we're going to show our work, and I know you can do that in your head, and I know that you know that 2 plus 3 is what equals 5, but I need you to mathematically prove that to me. So the whole point is to isolate the variable, or in other words, get it alone. So to cancel out, either we can say it as adding 3 or a positive 3, we're going to put a minus 3 or a negative 3. And that cancels that out. But now our scale is kind of unbalanced. So what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. And I know you remember this from last year. And when that cancels out, you're left with x. And then you have a little simple math over here to do. And 5 minus 3 is 2. And that proves to me that that's 2. Okay, so the same deal here. We are going to, instead of subtraction, to cancel that out, we're going to use the addition property of equality, and that's what that's called. The subtraction property of equality says if you subtract the same amount from both sides of the equation, it just gives you an equivalent expression. Addition property then says you can add the same thing to both sides and come up with an equivalent expression. So this is going to cancel out that, leaves me with a, and a positive 8, but a negative 3 gives me positive 5. And if I needed to check my solution, I would just say, now that I know that a is 5, let's go put it back in there. And 5 minus 8, or 5 plus a negative 8, is a negative 3. So then the inverse operation of multiplying is dividing, so we will use the division property of equality, and we are going to divide by a negative 5, because we want the negative to cancel. And you could do the same thing over here. That leaves you with your a equals positive divided by a negative is negative. To check it, is negative 5 times negative 6 equal to positive 30? Yes, it is. Okay? Division, we are going to cancel out by using its inverse, which is the multiplication property of equality. Again, same deal applies. If I want to cancel a negative 5, I have to multiply by a negative 5 and multiply by a negative 5 here. And you could look at it as negative 5 over 1. Cancel those out, and you're left with a over 1, which is the same as a, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So is positive 40 divided by negative 5 equal to negative 8? Yes, it is. Okay, those are your basic steps. And we use the property of equality. There's the addition property of equality, subtraction property of equality, division, and multiplication. So we're going to take those and know that you may not always see them in this order. This is your traditional standard form. But know that you may see them like this, like 3 plus a is equal to negative 12. The same thing will be done. If you want a by itself, then cancel out a positive 3 with a negative 3. And a is equal to negative 15. Okay, the only one to look out for would be if you have 6 minus x is equal to negative 5. You have options here. Your option, you know you want to get x by itself, and when it was a plus, it didn't really matter. So your option could be to cancel this out. You would do that. But then what are you left with? A negative x equals negative 11. And the coefficient in front of that is a negative 1. Excuse me, which then you would divide both sides by, and x would be equal to, dividing by negative 1 just changes the sign of whatever you're dividing by. Okay, so those are the simple ones that we are going to build off of. Okay, so let's talk now about what happens if you were to see, moving on to page 2, a fraction as a coefficient. So, for example, if I had 2/7 x equals 4, okay? And normally we would solve a multiplication equation with division. But when you go to divide by 2/7, that might look a little crazy. So we know from 6th grade that instead of dividing, we could multiply by the reciprocal. So if I have a coefficient that's a fraction, I'm not going to choose to divide by it. I'm going to choose to multiply by the reciprocal. Because essentially, remember, our goal is to isolate the variable. And in other words, make the coefficient 1. And if you look at it as 2/7 times blank would give you 1, the only number that would work is the reciprocal of 2/7, which is 7/2. Keep your equation balanced. And here you can see that it cancels here and cancels here, which leaves you with your x. And now you just have a little easy multiplication problem to do. You could choose to do 28/2, or probably easier is cross cancel 2 times 7, 14. Okay? You could do that if you have a fraction, I'm just looking, in the other one as well. So if I say, let's look at this one, 8/5 x, let's make it negative, equal to 4/15. Okay, so instead of having a whole number, I have a fraction here. So you are going to still multiply by the reciprocal. When you take the reciprocal of a number, you don't take the opposite of it. Opposites and reciprocals are different. The opposite of 8 is -8. The opposite, or the reciprocal of 8 is 1/8. So if I need to just flip this, I need to keep it negative. Okay, because I need the negative to cancel as well. So I'm going to cancel that and that and that and that, and that leaves me with x, which is what my goal was. Keep your equation balanced, multiply by the reciprocal, and then you have a little cross-canceling to do. So we're going to cross-cancel this and this. 4/8 is equal to 1/2. Let's not forget about that, because sometimes we're so focused on the math that we forget about our sign. It happens often. A positive times a negative is a negative. 1 times 1, numerators times each other, denominators times each other. -1/6 is going to be your answer. Okay? That's really all there is going to be for today. I want you to just make sure that you know that if it's not in the order, so like -18 is equal to x over -2. Know that you still have to get the x by itself. The opposite of dividing is multiplying, so we're going to use the multiplication property of equality to multiply both sides by -2, which cancels that out, leaves you with x over 1, which is just x. Negative times negative is a positive. And that will be your answer. So what I need you to know when you do your homework and you complete this assignment, the first thing you're going to do is copy the problem. The second thing you're going to do is show whatever work you have to right underneath or on that problem, if it's the case for the multiplication and division. And the third line will be, what is your answer? You do not have to show any checks. Okay? Take into consideration what your answers will be for your signs. Remember your sign rules that we've been working on in SLOT. And if you do those 3 steps for page 137, and it will continue on into 138, you're going to do numbers 1 through 49, odds, and that's your assignment for today.